Is the Third Temple evoking the Third World War? Is this why the Third Temple was demolished by Muslims without anyone's knowledge? What do the Israelis say? So is the end-time prophecy of the Bible fulfilled? What's the update on the Third Temple? Join us as we dig further into this topic on the Unknown Facts. The Third Temple is a made-up name for a hypothetically rebuilt temple in Jerusalem. It would come after Solomon's Temple and the Second Temple, both of which were destroyed. Solomon's Temple was destroyed by the Babylonians around 587 BCE, and the Second Temple was destroyed by the Romans in 70 CE. Even though it hasn't been built yet, the Third Temple is an important part of Judaism, especially Orthodox Judaism. It is expected to be the holiest place of worship for Jews. The Hebrew Bible says that Jewish prophets predicted that it would be built before or at the same time as the Messianic age. The building of the Third Temple is also a big part of some Christian views of the end of the world. Religious Jews have always been looking forward to a future project that will involve building the Third Temple on the Temple Mount in the Old City of Jerusalem. This idea is also pushed as an ideological goal in Israel. Muslims, on the other hand, have questioned the idea of the Third Temple because the Dome of the Rock was built by the Umayyad Caliphate on the site of Solomon's Temple and the Second Temple. Tensions between Jews and Muslims over the Temple Mount have been one of the main causes of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and the area has also been a major point of discussion in the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. Because Israel and the Palestinian National Authority have both said that Jerusalem is their capital city, most of the world hasn't given Jerusalem to anyone. Since the Second Temple was destroyed in 70 CE, religious Jews have said they want to see a third temple built on the Temple Mount. Prayer for this is a formal part of the Amidah prayer that Jews say 3 times a day. Even though it hasn't been built yet, the idea of and desire for a third temple is holy in Judaism, especially Orthodox Judaism, and people expect it to be built soon. After Israel took control of the Temple Mount in August 1967, Rabbi Shlomo Goren, who was then the chief rabbi of the Israel Defense Forces and later became the chief rabbi of the State of Israel, started setting up places for Jews to pray in public on the Temple Mount. Rabbi Goren was also known for his controversial ideas about the Temple Mount and Jewish control over it. On August 15, 1967, not long after the Six-Day War, Goren led a group of 50 Jews to the Temple Mount. There, they held a prayer service in defiance of protesting Muslim guards and Israeli police. Goren kept praying for a long time in the Mankameh building, which looked out over the Temple Mount and was where he held High Holy Day services every year. The Israeli Defense Ministry was very harsh on Goren because, given his high rank, he was acting in a way that wasn't right. Because of this, the chief rabbis of the time said again that no Jews were allowed on the Mount because it was a place of ritual impurity. The secular government liked this decision because it kept things the same as the Jerusalem Islamic Walk. Goren always disagreed with his co-workers and said that the Jews were not only allowed but also told to climb the Mount and pray there. Since the 1960s, Goren pushed for or supported building a third temple on the Temple Mount and was involved in a number of messianic projects that involved the site. The Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, 2 historic Islamic buildings that are more than 1,300 years old and are built on top of the Temple Mount, are the most immediate and obvious thing that stands in the way of achieving these goals. Given how important these holy places are to the Muslim world, any attempts to damage or limit access to them or to build Jewish structures inside, between, under, next to, cantilevered on top of, or in place of them could lead to major international conflicts. People think that the Dome of the Rock stands where the Second Temple used to be, but some scholars disagree and say that the temple was either just north of the Dome of the Rock or about 200 meters south of it, near the Gihon freshwater spring, or maybe between the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. But the building of the Third Temple can erupt a Third World War? Dr. Samuel Berkowitz, a well-known Jerusalem expert, tells Israel Today's editor-in-chief Aviel Schneider that 40 years ago, well-known academics at Harvard University talked about how a fight over the Temple Mount could lead to a Third World War. "This is very important to me," he says. "The Muslims are very good at starting rebellions." So Israel Today, Has Jerusalem become the capital of Israel? According to Dr. Berkowitz, no. It may be united on paper, but in reality it is not. On both sides of the city, Israeli law is in effect, but everyday life is not the same. The infrastructure, education, welfare, and social services on the eastern side of the city show clear signs of neglect. Let's say Israel has done things differently over the last 50 years, and this neglect hadn't happened. Would that have been good enough for the Arabs? No, money can't be used to stop the nationalist Arab movement, but there is less fighting in Jerusalem because the Arabs here have something to lose. They get money from the government, just like everyone else in Jerusalem. Because of this, Arabs in Jerusalem are more careful than their brothers in other parts of the world, but they both want the same thing, which is for East Jerusalem to be the capital of a Palestinian state. Let's face facts. No Israeli government will give up the Western Wall, and no Palestinian leader will ever be able to give up the mosques on the Temple Mount for peace. The Quran doesn't say a single word about Jerusalem. All of Europe's Middle East experts know that Muhammad was never in Jerusalem. The only reason Palestinians think the Temple Mount is holy is because of a small story that even Muslims used to think was made up. In this story, Allah is said to have taken Muhammad from Mecca to a place called Al-Aqsa on a flying horse. But the Quran was written in the year 652, and Muhammad died in 632. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is in Jerusalem, wasn't built for another 55 years. We're just talking about matters of faith here, but we can show that the Jewish temple was in Jerusalem through history and archaeology. We can understand what they believe, and as far as we are concerned, Muslims should still be able to pray there, but Jews should also be able to pray on the Temple Mount. Even the Muslims called Jerusalem the city of the temple for a long time, until well into the 11th century. The Supreme Council for Muslims in the Middle East put out a travel guide to the holy places in the area in 1924 and 1929. There, it says in black and white that the Temple of Solomon used to be where the two mosques are now. So how does the Christian world fit into the fight about Jerusalem? Under Israeli rule, Christians in Jerusalem have never had it so good when it comes to freedom of religion. Under the Ottomans and the Jordanians, things were very different, but there are two things that bother me. The first is the traditional Christian belief that Jews killed Jesus, which makes people hate Jews. From this point of view, the Jews are cursed people who shouldn't be allowed to live. People in the church see themselves as the new Israel. They are Israel in spirit, and we are Israel in the body. These Christians have a big problem with the Jews moving back to Eretz Israel and starting our country. The second problem is that many church leaders are worried about Christians in the Palestinian areas and in Arab countries in the Middle East. During the Intifada, Palestinian Muslims sent the following message to their Christian siblings and brothers: "After the Shabbat comes Sunday. After we have dealt with the Jews, it will be your turn." We know that Palestinian Muslims have attacked Christians many times who didn't join uprisings against Israel. Christian leaders around the world are worried about the safety of Christians in the Arab world, so they will not side with Israel. If it weren't for Jerusalem, would this conflict even be going on? Of course. The disagreement with the Palestinians is about all of Israel, not just Jerusalem. Because the temple is so holy, Jerusalem has become the center of attention. The Palestinians are in a national and religious war over who has the right to rule this land. So that was all about the video. Hope you find it informative. Then do subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and press the bell icon for more updates like this.